You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. Now, the largest new media platform on the web and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, King Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Game of Thrones After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Game of Thrones After Show.
What a season finale, guys. I am so excited to be talking about episode 10 of Game of Thrones because we're AfterBuzz and Bing is for doing, so we're doing the season finale of Game of Thrones. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we're actually at the John Lovitz Comedy Club right now. And for those of you joining in on the live chat, unfortunately I don't have my iPad open. I am sorry because of where we are, but we have a live audience here. Super exciting. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you guys.
Watching the show with us while we're furiously upstairs taking pages and pages of notes. But guys, thank you for joining us once again. I am Dave Klein, and joining us today, we've Sarah Stratton right next to me.
Hello. Hi, guys.
And to my left, Kristen Snyder.
Hello, guys.
And we have two very special guests with us. You might know him from a little show people our age might know, Boy Meets World, Ryder Strong.
Woo!
Glad to be here.
And over way far away in the corner, really far.
All the way at King's
probably
Landing.
out the door somewhere. We have from
North of the wall.
north of the wall. He's actually a wildling. Come down here right now.
Come down.
From AMC's The Killing, Eric Ladin.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Also, huge fans of the show. I know Eric Ladin marathon season 1 in 2 days, I believe. Is that right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Marathon it all about 25 to 26 hours, yeah.
That's the only problem about watching it on TV is you have to wait every week.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not as good as season 1 was. That was the best for me. It didn't get better than that. No, only because I got to watch it, back to back. I didn't sleep for, 2
It's like
days.
one 12-hour movie, basically.
Yeah, it's just me and my coffee and,
And that's pretty much what's great about these shows, too. It does feel like a movie, but you get 10 movies, and every week it's a new movie. But let's go ahead and jump into tonight's episode and the things that happen, the events that unfold. And we start off at the Twins with a phrase, and the first thing that we see is the Stark's banners are on fire. And Arya, unfortunately, has woken up and gets to see what looks like Robb Stark's body with his direwolf on his head. So what a pretty sight to see. I'm sure she doesn't have any problems going on mentally right now.
I mean, it kind of carried over the tone from last week's episode where we go straight back into the monstrosity of the Red Wedding. And I was like, oh no, another episode's going to kill me. It was horrifying.
I think, Sarah, you ran outside the door screaming after last week. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't do very well. I
Honestly, I felt from last week we were missing a bit of a battle scene, so I was glad that we still got the continuation of that this week. And this show teaches us to root for good, but sometimes that there's not always good to be found in this world.
Let's also preface that with you love death.
Yeah.
You, without your battle scenes, are just not happy.
If you've been listening to the show, we know this about Kristen Snyder. She loves her death. But yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point, though. Last week, since we end with the Red Wedding, it's kind of just that sad note of everything that happened within the actual wedding itself. You didn't get to see the action and craziness happening outside of the twins. So you get to see that. And again, this is the second time that Arya's had to see one of her family members without his head. So, again, brutal for Arya.
Good
I didn't
call, I
connect
forgot.
it
Yeah, I
in
didn't
my
connect
head.
it that directly either. Oh.
But the Hound takes her away, and they end up coming across these soldiers who are talking about killing people. And Arya, not too happy because of these events that have unfolded, goes and asks them for just a little warmth. No big deal, right?
I'm so proud of Arya, and I can't wait until
Because
this
of death, right?
I mean, this is huge for her character. This is her first kill, and this is something that we've been waiting for 3 seasons.
Well, it's her first time she's killed a man, because in season 1 she
Yeah.
did kill the fat little boy with needles. So.
Right.
First
Okay. Well,
man
this was
kill.
her first gruesome, graphic death, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I can't wait for. You know what I really like about this show is it portrays like Daenerys as like this great mother and God, but really from a different perspective, she could be a villain, which I see Arya as. I mean, she has the god of death. Come on, guys.
She is following the
Me,
darkness.
right?
Yeah, it is. What do you believe in? And she always says death now, and she always lists the names in her head of the people who she wants to kill.
It's like she's praying.
But I still love her for some reason. Arya's so amazing, even though she really wants to kill people.
'Cause she's a villain.
But Arya is my favorite character, though, so I agree with you, Kristen. I love when she started stabbing the guy in the back with the dagger. Apparently, I'm brutal, too. I love that scene.
But
And-
after all the swords play and technique she learned in season 1, like that wasn't that great, you know? I mean, it was like a quick
Yeah, and then the
stab in
hound
back,
kind of
like,
jumped in and saved her ass.
yeah.
So
I was
it's
kind of
like-
looking for like a little
Yeah.
bit more medieval.
I'm
We've
sure the
got to
Hound-
start small. Like, she's got to pull the sneak attacks while she still can. you know?
Right.
We need to build up to the battle scenes with
I got you.
Arya.
You know what, though? I'm sure the Hound would say, as long as the person's dead, then mission accomplished. That's all that matters at the end. So mission accomplished. But she also throws out the coin that she got and says Valor Morgulis. And that was the coin that she says is worth more than you know. So we get that repeat of Valor Morgulis. So once again, and that was the end of season 2, where she talks about that and she learns the words. She is once again repeating that. So clearly the Faceless Man is on her mind from this scene.
You know, she had such a traumatizing childhood that's hardened her. But I feel like with the Hound now, he's going to prepare her and guide her on this journey of revenge. And I think that he's a great influence in her life, and I'm so happy that they paired up.
Influence of death.
Oh, yeah, great influence from the Hound.
He's the
Killing
guy
is
you want
okay.
babysitting, you know? He's just a good guy.
Sansa, he protected Sansa in his own way, so.
I really like him, and he's so attractive with that scar. I see a lot of parallels.
You know how, if you want to
We're learning so much about you tonight.
Revealing.
Kristen, I have an elbow scar right now. Does that work? Does that do anything?
I'm getting a little turned on right here. I guess I'm a little bit like Joffrey in that I'm like a little sexually stimulated by violence and cruelty. I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
So we also get with the twins though. We have Walder Frey celebrating his so kind wedding that he threw, the great wedding that he threw with Roose Bolton, who is now the Lord, and Walder Frey is now the Lord of the Riverrun. That we learned that is what he got out of this. He's going to become the Lord of Riverrun. Roose Bolton is going to be the Lord of the North. And we also find out that Blackfish has escaped because he had to pee last week. So now you know if you have to piss in the middle of something, maybe it will save your life.
And we
Bathrooms are upstairs and back over there.
Archers might be upstairs too.
be careful.
Yeah.
But we also learn even more. We also learn from him that Ramsay who's kidnapped Theon. We finally get the name to the face, and that he's the bastard son of Bolton.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump on that because it is a Ramsay Snow because he is a bastard, or it would be Ramsay Bolton. But Ramsay Snow is eating a sausage, taunting Theon, talking about phantom limbs there, and he's just torturing and taunting Theon. And all this scene made me wonder, and I heard Eric and his wife talking about how they hated watching these scenes up there. I heard you guys talk about that.
Yeah, she doesn't watch these scenes.
But it's funny to me because last season, everyone hated Theon so much for everything he did. And it kind of made me think about it, because I agree, it's so hard watching these scenes. And you wanted this type of thing to happen to him last season, but then when you actually have to watch it and see it happen, it kind of makes you turn around. And when you actually witness how brutal it really is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you cut a man's dick off and he gets some sympathy, you know? I mean, it's like intense. Can we say that? Sorry.
You can say that.
We lost a lot of limbs this season, and a lot of people
That's
felt
the
like
worst one to lose.
a lot of people felt like these Theon scenes were so like drawn out. But I feel like the prolonged torture actually showed how psychologically injured he was, and how that transformation was almost, I'm not gonna say needed, but when you're like submerged in a pool of pain, you're going to be a changed man. You're not gonna sometimes I'm not going to get into that. You guys are just going to make
I would
fun of me,
completely
but
disagree with you there. Like,
I feel
I'm
like
still
some people
rooting
need
against
that.
Theon.
They
Really?
need to be
Yes.
submerged in torture and pain because it makes you see the other side. And he was
But
awful.
he
before.
made bad decisions, but he's
Yeah.
he's always been that weak person that just was always making decisions based on trying to gain admiration of others.
He's
so,
never
Yeah.
changed. He's never gotten back on her. He's still stooped down to any level. Like, he
Yeah, but I
admits
think
that
at the
he's-
end of this episode, that the scene with his sister was a real redemption, and that was a nice moment. It was like finally Theon has an advocate. You know, it's like, and they couldn't have earned that without an entire awful series of tortures.
Right.
That's
so we
true.
feel bad for him. And then I felt like the audience here was like, yeah, go get him.
Yeah.
When she stood up for Theon, which if that had happened at the beginning of the season, imagine we'd all be like, why? Theon's such a dick.
Yeah, it's funny too because they play triumphant music when that
Yeah.
happens. Like you're supposed to be rooting for her, so
Right.
clearly that was the intention behind it.
I feel like we needed all those scenes in order to little by little gain back respect for Theon and Nomos.
Right.
Want him to make it
I don't know
out
if we
alive.
needed all of those scenes. I would have been happy with just one. Like watching that finger get pulled off, like that
Yeah.
one, that was enough
We
for me.
needed
Like,
with you.
every single.
Okay, Kristen. Look, as long as they kept in the one scene where he was tricked into thinking he was safe and then not, I still love that scene. I just love trickery and things like that, even though it was not the most dick thing that happened to Theon, but one of the most.
well, there's something a little obligatory too about like torture in a medieval setting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even though obviously it's not like really a medieval setting, it's a fantasy setting. But I think that we associate a fantasy with our our own sort of medieval period of history.
We need the
and that, yeah, we
chains.
need change, we need torture, we need a guy like tied up. So it
Yeah.
all fits into
Yeah.
our
Well, when you go to like medieval times, you always want to look at the torture equipment
Right.
that they had there. You're so intrigued by what does it do, and now you're getting to find out firsthand. Awesome.
And now that he's been on Solid, maybe he'll be a good soldier.
Oh, good point. He isn't unsullied in a way. Oh, okay. So we also get Balon Greyjoy in that scene that you were talking about with Yara, who gets the letter with the box delivered with Theon's bits in it. And Balon does not care. He says, well, now that he's not a man anymore, can't extend the family line. Who cares? Who gives a crap? I don't know. So Balon not at all sticking up for him. And again, Yara leading the way. But as Yara moves on and sails away with 50 of the best men, we can move on and talk about King's Landing. Where in King's Landing, we have Tyrion with Sansa, and Sansa's pretty much warmed up to Tyrion at this point, which for those of you who read the books, I do want to point out that this is really different. You never get any scenes in this moment where Sansa has at all warmed up to Tyrion, so it's kind of nice, and I feel like it's a way for, in the show, to make viewers like Sansa a little more than maybe everything happening in the books, that she has warmed up to Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of joking with him and acting like a 14-year-old wife.
Well, I feel like Tyrion's kind of a flawed hero as we get that scene with Varys talking about if anyone, he has the brains to save this land. But he could have ran off with Shay and been happy, but he had to stay in King's Landing where he was sort of relevant and he wanted to be in control. So he's sort of that flawed hero at this point, and almost obviously flawed.
And actually, another point with that scene is you do have Shay in the background the entire time during that scene where Sansa's finally being nicer to Tyrion. So it's kind of nice if you to notice those details like that. But we get Podrick pulling Tyrion away to talk to Joffrey, who is so excited because, man, Joffrey rocks. He's the best and so happy because Robb is dead. Totally Joffrey's doing. Obviously, because he's the king, right? But
All
yeah,
right,
Joffrey is excited about this letter.
I wasn't as excited about this death, I'm going to be honest. Like, I was disgusted by him and the fact
Yeah.
that he was just... I mean, he was acting like a child. It became so obvious that he's,
He was
unfitted
acting probably
for
like about a
his role.
13-year-old, maybe.
Right. I mean, he was
Well, he's
just getting
somewhere
off
in
on this.
between, like this adolescent, and just like this bloodthirsty killer, but he's never actually really gone to war, done anything besides murder helpless women who can't stand up to him.
And this scene
true.
reminded me of when Bran was talking about when the chef fed the king his son, because he just kept wanting to kill more and more, and that's why he turned him to a white rat or whatever. But it really relates back to this scene,
Yeah.
how Joffrey was saying he wanted to serve Robb's head to Sansa at his wedding.
Yeah, and we get this argument with Tyrion where Tyrion sticks up for his wife and says that as Joffrey calls him a monster, Tyrion says, monsters are dangerous, and right now kings are dying like flies. What a great line. So Tyrion directly threatening Joffrey in front of Cersei, in front of Tywin, and making it pretty clear that he does not like Joffrey in front of everybody.
He's done a couple times now in the last few episodes. So
And it
clearly,
always comes down to really Tywin stepping in to make the power move.
right.
We got to give Joffrey some essence of Nightshade. But it's great, too. Tywin really steps up for Tyrion in a way. It's more of Tywin just realizes how horrible Joffrey is and throws out, if someone has to say, I am the king, that means they're not a very good king.
Sure, and nobody respects him. So
Yeah, I love that
that's
whole
very clear.
That whole idea of crown power versus
Yeah.
actual power,
Right.
and how that played out in this scene. And the other thing about this scene that I've noticed in the last couple episodes is there's a real sense of humor that is inserted into the show. I mean, even in the book, Tyrion was always funny in the book, but throughout the last 3 episodes, I say they've been adding more jokes with Hodor, and I think it's really refreshing. It's actually really nice because we know these characters so well that they're not over the top comedy. It's not played for a joke, but it's actually just naturally very funny. And that scene, I was, I could hear everybody laughing. It was a really good scene.
Yeah, it was a great scene.
That's a great point as well.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes when it works the best is just when you care about the characters enough, you can slip one small thing in there. And this is such a dark show in a lot of ways. It's good that they can have those moments. And even with
apparently they're playing with a laugh trap for next season.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
It's they're just tinkering with it.
it's got to really lighten the mood in some way.
Shoot in front of a live audience.
Live audience.
Yeah.
But even these scenes where Tywin's just talking back to Joffrey, everyone's laughing at the things that Tywin says because we all have such a hatred for Joffrey that's like, all right, yeah, Tywin, put him in his place.
Hopefully at some point he has a phantom crown.
But we've got also Joffrey throws in Tywin's face about his father being Robert Baratheon, so Joffrey thinks. But I mean, that's also the thing though, with Joffrey, he still thinks Robert Baratheon's his father. He still doesn't really realize the truth of what's happening. But after this, we have Tywin wanting to speak with Tyrion alone, and they're kind of talking about power and what power is and how and why Tywin did what he did. And it was really Tywin who set up everything with the phrase, who was the one that was behind everything. So Tywin was the mastermind, as we find out. And Tyrion's kind of pointing out that armies are power, and Robb has a giant army, yet you still defeated him anyways. So just showing how cunning Tywin really is.
I like how they said how Walter's not brave at all, and he was still basking in his success where he did nothing. He was still at the Red Wedding when we saw him. Walter Frey was still sitting there with his cup as they were cleaning the blood off the floors. And it just shows, he's just there, trying to take it all in because it's the first time in his life he's kind of defeated anyone.
Yeah, no, he's ruthless too.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things though in this scene of Tywin and Tyrion is, for those of you who noticed, Tyrion says, Northerners will never forget, and as we all know, the North remembers. So I did like that little throw out there for people who realize the words of the North.
I think also with the conversation between Tywin and Tyrion, for me, it brought me back to realizing I'm always rooting for Tywin, but he's not a great guy. And when you put him next to Tyrion and their history together and their family history, you get that other layer of Tywin that, yeah, he can beat Joffrey. That doesn't make him any better. He's still responsible for hundreds of deaths, and he's pulling the strings behind the war. He's authorizing all of these kills.
Yeah, and he also just wanted, take Tyrion and throw him in the sea.
But as Davos pointed out, the most important part of living in this world is being able to protect your family and do whatever necessary. So at this point, Tywin is at the top because he's the only man doing that. A lot of people have lost sons. A lot of people don't exist anymore. Families are dying out.
Yeah, although he's not the king, he's clearly the king. He's
clearly the one in
running
charge.
the show.
I thought that this scene introduced what I sort of took to be the theme of the episode, if not the show in general, which is, an individual life versus a family legacy, too, which, they explicitly talk about. And then the fact that he was going to send Tyrion out to sea is mirrored in that scene later when Davos sends the other child out to sea to save the individual life for the sake, against a family legacy. It's really interesting. I thought that way that all played out,
Yeah, they do a lot of great plays with that, especially when you get to bounce back and forth between scenes. You get to see the overlaps and how one scene really is just like another, no matter what part of the world that you're in and what part of Westeros or Essos you're in.
I really agreed with Ryder. I really think that Davos and Gendry would be like a power father and son team, and I really think that we're going to see them a lot in the future, given that little conversation we got with them.
Right.
If he doesn't fall off his boat.
Yeah, if he doesn't fall off his boat. So going back to King's Landing, we get the fact that Tywin knows, and apparently everybody knows, that Tyrion still hasn't slept with Sansa. And that's what Tywin wants Tyrion to really get busy with. So everyone seems to know this, but the fact that Tyrion now has to break this news about Robb to Sansa, I'm not quite nighttime mood setting
Yeah,
things
I
to
like
say.
what he said to Tywin. Are you going to open her legs for me? Because clearly she's never going to want to sleep with me. And, if she had to be with anyone, obviously Tyrion is the nicest, kindest person left in King's Landing. And he was almost kind of coming to, like, he sounded like he was siding with the Starks a lot this episode and, like, sticking up for her. And he was noble and he had a lot of honor whenever he was speaking. He sounded like a Stark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Tyrion has ever particularly disliked the Starks. He always he hates his family. He doesn't like the Lannisters at all, so he always sticks up for them. But what we get moving on is we have Varys chatting with Shay, and we get this scene where we find out Varys' intentions, where Varys seems to really care about the realm, and he feels that Tyrion is the only man who can make this country a better place. So he actually really seems to favor Tyrion and like and respect Tyrion a lot.
Or so he says.
Or so he says, because Varys says a lot of things. But we also get this scene with Shay where she gets this offer for diamonds, and she decides to throw them down. She doesn't want to leave because, as Varys points out, she really is in love with him. And this is actually also another huge deviation from the novel, where it's actually Tyrion who comes and talks to Shay about all this stuff, as opposed to Varys, and Shay, again, won't leave. And Tyrion's trying to do it to protect Shay. So a little bit of a deviation for you guys who read the books.
Mm-hmm. I really liked this scene because it sort of like hinted back so much about the last episode and how, following your heart instead of making strategic moves is not going to end well. I mean, when you follow your heart, it seems like you're always sacrificing something, whether that's a baby or a victory. And I feel like, I'm just saying, I agree. I think Shay should leave if she, wants peace and wants Tyrion to live as well.
A little unbelievable, though, because, if you hand a woman a bag of diamonds, like they might not leave, but they're surely not throwing them back
Eric,
at
I believe your wife is here, right?
And she will tell you that if I handed her a bag of diamonds,
He's like, all right.
she would take them. She would not give them back.
Sailing across the country. So we also have Tyrion now ends up chatting with Cersei after having a little bit of a drink with Podrick, who needs to keep up. And he admits how bad he feels about Sansa. And Cersei doesn't seem to think that she's going to have to marry. She feels pretty confident that this isn't going to happen for whatever reason. And we get this thought from her where she wants Tyrion to give Sansa babies so she has some sort of happiness, because in Cersei's life, the only source of her happiness right now is her children.
Yeah, and I really like that scene because, he was saying even Joffrey, and she was like, it's kind of like Joffrey, no matter what child you have and what kind of monster you have, you need a reason to live, and in this world, motivations don't exactly appear everywhere. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can escape to.
Well, Cersei's just escaping to her past. Like, she even mentions it's more about who Joffrey was as a baby and that sense of ownership and control over something versus what he is now. And you see her constantly clinging to his hands, to his arms, trying to get him back, like under her protection or her advice, and it just isn't working.
But nothing about her to me is, I don't believe anything she says. Nothing about, she garners no, sort of...
no sympathy from you,
sympathy
really?
from me.
So by the end of this season, I'm starting to she's pretty awesome.
No.
Right? because as much as she, talks shit, she and Tyrion really do, they're on a different level than the rest of their family.
Sure.
They're both really smart. They both kind of have a sense of humor. And so in that scene, I really liked the dynamic between the two of them. I was like, all right, I can see her point of view a little bit. She's just got a psycho for a son.
Tywin doesn't seem to think she's very smart, though.
Yeah.
As he threw in her face the previous episode.
Yeah.
You know what? Having Joffrey still gives her agenda every day. She
Yeah.
still has an agenda to keep him under control. And she did show her cards to Marjorie a few weeks ago, and she didn't normally do that. But she still remains like a political mastermind, and I really don't see her marrying.
Yeah, but maybe she has another source of happiness coming, because we get Jaime finally making it back to King's Landing. I mean, who knows what she's going to think about him now that he's missing his hand, but at least maybe it's...
You could tell.
I don't know.
She
Yeah, that was
pissed.
really telegraphed.
Yeah.
Him looking down at the stump.
You could
Yes,
tell.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What
She
is
didn't
that?
stand up. She was
Right.
just like, oh.
Oh man. You can't even hold a sword anymore.
You got one
That's the
hand.
deal. Yeah.
You're dirty.
Yeah. Probably smells.
What's with the beard? Right?
Yeah.
The beard. Come on, man.
Yeah, and then in the novel, he's also actually, I believe he's shaven his head off as well. He's totally scruffy, completely gone. So he also looks completely different as well if you read the books.
Well, I mean, after this Lord of the Rings journey, I feel like he's definitely going to be a changed man, and I don't even know how much they'll have in common anymore, honestly.
No, it's going to be him and, what's her
Brienne.
name? Brienne, yeah.
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 I agree with that.
I just wonder what Tywin's going to say. I mean, he was the golden child. Although the smart ones he doesn't seem to like. Now he has his golden boys disfigured, too. So we've got a whole nother problem.
Right.
Tywin puts himself on a pedestal, and the only person up there was Jaime.
Right.
And now he finally has Jaime back, and Jaime's no longer going to be who he's expected to be.
Jaime's sworn to celibacy, right? As a
white,
a knight. Yeah.
So he is at the moment, but I don't think that's Tywin's plans for him.
Okay.
Because technically, at the moment, Jaime's supposed to still inherit where they live. It's supposed to be-
Casterly Rock.
Right, Casterly
Yeah.
Rock. So it's still supposed to be Jaime at this moment. But, I mean, he is sworn to celibacy, so it's kind of that issue there. Of course, he already has children, but that's all right.
I really like the parallels between Jaime and Brienne and Arya and the Hound. It's like enemies becoming friends, and I'd love to see like a real-world Westeros.
Right, and they also have this... I don't know if I want to see that happening.
7 people from different houses.
But we do get also that moment with Cersei talking about needing to get rid of all their enemies, and Tyrion points out, well, every time we get rid of one enemy, 2 more seem to crop up. So another moment with them and their difference in thoughts.
So is Jaime going to keep his oath? Like, who's he going to return the Stark girls to?
I don't know. Who,
The only one he could possibly return is Sansa at this point, right?
yeah,
She's
I mean,
the
are there any
heiress.
Starks left? You know?
Yeah, well, in
They're
King's
all
Landing,
off on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, in King's Landing, they think everyone's dead except for Sansa. So that's how they don't realize that Bran's alive or Rickon.
Right.
Well, each
Arya.
one of them can operate that way at this point, because none of them are together. So all of them, in their mind, has to kind of assume that they're the last Stark standing.
Yeah.
You have one behind the wall. You have one at Castle Black.
Right.
None of them knows each other's whereabouts. So they're all thinking that. They're all thinking they're alone.
Right, but let's talk about them and about the Starks who are still alive and move on up to the Night Fort, which is where Bran is now at. Rickon and Osha have left. But Bran, Jojen, Mira, and Hodor, as he says, Hodor for his entrance.
He's giving great advice.
Great advice. Thank you, Hodor. They're all up in the Night Fort, and they're telling these tales that Kristen mentioned about how Bran's talking about how he's heard from Old Man that the Night Fort's supposed to be haunted and all these horrible things that are in the Night Fort. And they start hearing some noises in the middle of the night. What could it possibly be? And it turns out that Sam is now, as we kind of got that tip from him in the last episode, he was talking about this secret entrance that only he knew from reading about the Night Fort, and now he has ventured through to the other side, and they meet up. And we get this meeting, and you don't really have that a lot of times in the show yet. It's pretty much just been everyone splitting apart to different ends.
I like that.
But it's finally a meeting of groups who didn't really know each other.
I was really excited about that.
You can only meet someone when you don't plan it. You can't make plans in
Yeah.
this show.
Especially in LA.
You just kind of
Well, just as long as you don't go to the twins, you might be a bit sad. Just don't go to the twins. We now know. But Sam isn't too happy about the idea of taking Bran back north. He's like, wait, what are you talking about? And Jojen, because he has green dreams, already knows about the White Walkers, which surprises Sam. But it is fun getting Sam's realization about who Bran is. Like, wow, I know you. I know Jon. And I know that's got to be your direwolf because I would know them anywhere. And he also happens to know about Hodor.
Yeah, and he said he'll be his brother if, he's brothers with Jon. He'll do anything for him. He's his brother, too. And then Bran asked if he'll take him beyond north of the wall.
Right.
Well, not anything.
Like, don't know about that one. But Bran does end up heading out north of the wall. He shows, at least Sam leads the way to where to go and shows him this secret entrance, which is a lot more involved. But he finds out, and they all leave. So Bran is with Hodor, Jojen, and Mira. They're all heading north of the wall, where Sam then makes it back, and he's back at the wall, needing to explain to the Maester Aemond about Gilly.
I was still stuck on Bran. I feel bad for Bran because I feel like he didn't ask for this life. He was like, I wish I could go with you too, to Sam and Gilly, And it's like, he didn't ask for these powers, and he's like going to be almost this superhero that he didn't ask for all these powers, but now he's gotta like save the world.
Yeah,
well, he was climbing around the tower and peeping in on people, so maybe no.
He's
but
trying
yeah,
to
he doesn't
fly.
deserve it. Yeah.
But now Hodor gets the dragon glass as well. So now, being that Bran can control Hodor, as we find out, that's pretty much he's equipped with the right weapon for the White Walkers.
I'm glad that they acknowledged the dragon glass because we thought it was left behind a few episodes.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be some other dragon glass because that was funny that if you think back a couple episodes, Sam just left it there after using it. Like, what are you thinking, Sam? The one thing that kills these guys, and you just leave it hanging?
Clearly he didn't.
He found it.
He found it.
Or he has a few.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just wondering, was it some other bit? Because we didn't see him running back. I don't know, maybe he had more dragon glass with him.
Gilly remembered, ran back.
He
It's all good.
manufactured
Yeah, Gilly's
dragon
like,
glass.
what are we doing? Let's run back. So Sam does make it, though, to, with Gilly, they do make it. So they're back at Castle Black, and he is explaining to Maester Aemon about Gilly and kind of the words and his new thought about the words, because they didn't really think about it before. Before it was all wildlings, but now it's, the words were protect men, and the wildlings are men, and apparently this is really all about the White Walkers. So having that realization about what everything was actually about.
And that was like the realization of the episode, and that gets transferred when Master Aemon sends out all the ravens to notify all of Westeros of what's happening.
And now the question is how many people are going to care, and we're going to talk about at least one king who does care of the many, many kings.
I feel like Sam and Gilly, their relationship is like the only one that's really blossoming and might survive this harsh world. What do you guys think?
I hope not.
Well-
I mean, sorry.
I don't like them.
Sorry. They're really awkward. I just can't get over it.
But Gilly loves him. He's
Well,
so smart.
And he
has
became a
way-
hero too. It's
Yeah.
nice to see Sam actually, finally do something and stand up for himself and all the stuff that we've been watching. It's been a good journey for him.
Yes,
One
Sam has
episode.
had a lot of
One
growth.
episode out of 3 seasons.
What do you want from a guy?
She asked
He's
too
the only
much.
person who killed a White Walker.
Sarah wants
1,000
everything.
years.
Exactly. It's just weird.
Sam's a badass.
Yeah.
He's a wizard.
Sam is one of those characters that we've seen a lot of character growth from this season, from before when it was Sam the Craven, and now Sam is now the man because he did kill a White Walker, and he is actually talking to Maester Aemon and not backing away, afraid of what Maester Aemon's going to say, and talking about his realizations.
Character growth. Good job, Sam.
He's very honest, and there's something to be said about honesty in this world.
Yeah. But another relationship that we have at the same time is we got Ygritte catching up to Jon Snow and doesn't seem to be too happy with him for whatever reason, maybe abandoning her, I don't know. But Jon Snow gives her this speech about how she always knew who he was, I love you, you love me, and doesn't believe that Ygritte's going to actually act on the bow in his face. But she does.
I didn't think she was either. I thought that they were going to have some reflection about her killing the other wildling because I'm like, how'd she show up all by herself without a horse, following the guy who was on a horse? But she's fine.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really make sense to me.
But she did stand up to her. I mean, she basically stood up for him in front of her people, So I mean, and then in front of all of them, he turned his back on her. So.
Okay, but if her mission was to kill him, shouldn't she have brought the other wildling with her?
No, I think that she wanted to do this by herself.
Oh,
This was her on her own.
Thing.
It's a woman power
Yeah, it's just
thing.
a woman power thing. This
Oh,
was
I
the
got
very beginning of a woman's movement. Yeah, you'll see it in season 4, dealt with a laugh track.
So for those of you who were freaked out about the Red Wedding, don't worry, you've got the women's movement coming in season 4.
Right,
It's all
yeah.
good.
That already
The pink
started.
wedding.
Just
right.
on the other coast.
Oh yeah, back in Essos. You're right. Good point.
Exactly.
That did already start.
You know what? I feel like John, the first few seasons, was like a bland character, and some people are saying that now he's moving south of further south. He's sort of thawing out, and he was just really cold the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
But I feel like they both betrayed both sides to be together. And it's kind of like this show is kind of saying, again, sometimes love isn't enough. And I think that's an important theme that everyone can understand. Maybe Ygritte, not so much at the moment, but it is. It's like sometimes it's not enough. And if you have to sacrifice so much in order to be together, at what cost?
And I was glad that they had this scene too, because if you read the books and you watch last week's episode, it was actually during the chasing scene that Ygritte did this, and I was kind of thrown off because I was like, oh, I guess they're not having Ygritte shoot John with arrows. So I was glad they had this scene. It was a nice moment too. It was a great moment to have in this book where you get. Okay, it was a nice moment. Not maybe nice isn't the right
It's
word.
a really nice,
It's
just nice
Sweet.
moment.
It was just
Yeah.
sweet.
very
I mean,
sweet.
this is how all my relationships
Yeah.
end.
Every couple
actually.
needs to go through this. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I have
everybody
about
goes
6
through
arrow
that.
wounds right now. So
Really?
yeah.
I love scars. She did kind of move really fast though, because after one night in a cave, she was ready to like live and die together, and she was repeating those words that they do at the Stark weddings, the words of the North at a wedding,
Yeah.
to John. So she was moving a little fast.
These people get married without talking to each other. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
I
not
was
like
gonna
this
say,
world.
I mean,
she's
they at
over
least
14.
knew each other
like,
for a
that
few
gives her a
days.
lot of experience.
That's true.
Yeah,
At least
they
she's
didn't
over
meet at the
14.
altar.
She has had a relationship before,
Yeah.
which in this world you don't see. Because
Yeah.
everyone, when you get married, that's your first relationship.
Maybe the relationship should start once you get married. They might they might last longer.
I don't know, but she's clearly though she's heartbroken, and that's why she does this. It looks like from this scene you get that she is completely heartbroken. But John, I mean, first it doesn't seem like he's gonna make it, but it looks like he does make it back to the wall, and Sam catches him, and John gives a little look. So we get that John is maybe okay. We don't really know, but at least he's hanging in there somewhat.
We didn't
Hopefully.
see where the last arrow went.
It's at least it's better than the last week's ending to the Starks, where we knew they were all finished. At least there might be some hope. Maybe.
Maybe.
Unless we see, I
recognition.
don't know. Maybe we'll see his direwolf on his head next week or next season.
No.
Everyone hates you right now.
All right, I'm done. I'm just gonna... Okay, so let's move on to where we get the letter sent to, which is Dragonstone, and that's where we finally get Davos reading this letter from all the way from the north, reaching them. But before that happens, we have Davos chatting with Gendry, and Davos is kind of siding with Gendry and talking about how, hey, we were both raised from flea bottom and became more than we realized, and trying to tell Gendry about how much they relate. And Gendry doesn't quite trust Davos after all the leeches and things that happened to him and Melisandre, but at least the leeches weren't quite as bad as Roose Bolton, and his bastard. Not as bad as that. But yeah, so we get we do get that scene with them, and Davos really siding with them and going and standing up for Gendry in front of Stannis Baratheon, and really standing up and saying that, hey, I think this is wrong. You can't just do this. It turns out now you guys are related to each other, and you're gonna just straight up murder a Gendry.
Do you think the voodoo leeches and the bad juju was what was responsible for Rob's death? Just curious, guys.
I mean,
No. But I don't believe in voodoo leeches.
That's what's so hard. I mean, that's what's so
Or
brilliant
good
about
juju.
these books and this show is that you don't know which set of gods or which type of magic is going to be the magic or the set of
Exactly.
gods. And it seems like they all kind of exist and they all have reasons for you to believe in them. And so it's and like this supposedly evil god at the end of this episode is now kind of doing the right thing against the White Walkers. So it's this question of who are you rooting for and whose magic is the magic that's going to win. I love that about this show.
Right, and it does raise a question of morality, and as you were saying, who are you rooting for? Because it's so gray of what's right and what's wrong in this world, and who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Because at first you're rooting against the Red God and everything that it stands for when you see Melisandre, but then now that it's like, oh, well, they want to fight the north of the wall and they want to fight the White Walkers, but then maybe the White Walkers are the good guys. I don't know. Probably not.
White Walkers and dragons, only good things.
But yeah, there is north of the wall. You have the White Walkers, which is that whole sect, and then now you have the Red God and all of his powers we've already seen come true. You have dragons now being alive, and every magic that you could possibly think of is coming back.
Well, that's what a friend of mine was. We were talking about this, and we were just talking about how the magic used to exist outside of Westeros, outside of the Seven Kingdoms. You had above the wall, and you had Essos all the way over there, and the magic was there. But now it's slowly infiltrating the Seven Kingdoms with Melisandre, with the Band of Brothers, with Bran. So it's kind of, as Game of Thrones is growing, we are getting more magic with each character.
And I'm really glad we got that slow integration of magic, because if this show started out this way, a lot of people aren't as into fantasy
Right.
as they are the genre of like medieval times.
Right.
And I wasn't particularly years ago, but now I know I'm getting older and I'm more open to things. but I was just gonna say, like, with the fantasy elements, I like how they're slowly integrated into this show.
Come on, but Lord of the Rings, that was a long time ago. That was amazing.
I recently watched it.
I would agree with you. It's like as we learn with the characters about magic, they become more relatable. Like, we're on the same level as them.
So
almost.
Game of Thrones is saving nerds everywhere. Fantasy is
Yes.
awesome.
Yes!
Thank you, Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin.
Someone on the interwebs actually compared Gendry to Gatsby about their like humble beginnings and then like climbing, and I just really loved that comparison.
Kristen also loves Gatsby, by the way.
love Gatsby.
Note there. So we have Davos too. We get him learning how to read with Shireen Barath, or Shireen, so with Shireen. And
The little girl.
The little girl. That's
Stannis'
Stannis' daughter. Who has the scarred face, and she's helping him read, and he's reading these letters, and he gets to this letter from the Night's Watch that he starts reading before he hears these bells toll, and we kind of get that continuation of it a little bit further on, but it turns out that that's everything that Maester Aemon had said, and thank God that Davos had learned how to read, because otherwise no one would have noticed this, no one would have cared. It was all Davos' idea that, hey, this is actually really important, everything happening north of the Wall.
And I really love that he gave Gendry the credit so that Stannis was like, okay, good, I spared him.
Yeah, so it is, though, that is what happens, though. So Stannis decides needs to die, and as soon as Davos hears that, he's like, no, that cannot happen. He just wants to do what's right, no matter what happens to himself. He goes and saves Gendry and then faces the consequences.
But we don't know essentially what Gendry's fate is.
Right, okay, well, he attempts to save someone who can't row a boat and can't swim and sends him off to sea.
Yeah, I mean, can you swim? No. Can you been on a boat? No. Cool, here's a boat, go. Good luck, my son.
All the tools you need.
You'll learn along the way. You know what? Davos was stranded on an island with nothing, so you got a boat. You're fine.
Yeah.
At least
You
you have
know
a boat.
what? Some parents just need to throw their kids out to sea.
That's what birds do. The birds just hop out until they get to fly.
I don't think there's a lot wrong with that.
He's a little bird, a little raven, but
Well, he'll survive. He'll be okay.
It's gonna be
Gendry's
tough
been through
by
worse.
this journey.
right.
It's gonna come up.
But now Davos does bring up this raven, this bird that comes, and he brings up the letter within to Stannis, and as Melisandre throws into the fire, they realize that it's really the north, and that's where everything that's important is. The War of the Five Kings doesn't matter. This is what really matters and what's really important. And finally, one king understands that all the fighting between the seven kingdoms, what does it matter if they end up killing each other, then the north comes and invades? They really need to unite for this one cause. And of course, Stannis throws out there, hey, guess what? Melisandre just saved your life.
Yeah, I mean, this episode was almost unlike the rest that we've seen this season because it was about houses coming together, and that's where it seems like the plot's going.
It's a change of tone compared to all the massacres we normally see. Like, I would say that last week's episode was the same movement as season 1's finale.
Right.
Like, you got that same killing at the end, and this was a total flip. And I think that's what the whole next season is going to be about, is just this unity, and all of them have to kind of combine forces or they're all going to die. And that was the whole thing above the wall. That was what Mance Raider's message was, to get them to unite, to get all the wildlings to unite, was that they were going to die. And it's a universal fear.
Right, and it's funny, though, because you think about all these threats in this show, which with Daenerys, who's still kind of off in an area that no one has to interact with her. But in Season 1, you had the White Walkers as the very introduction scene to the entire show. And it was something that still, even with that scene, felt like this far-off threat that didn't matter for all the turmoil happening within the Seven Kingdoms. And finally, it's starting to infiltrate. And in this season, you're seeing it start to actually affect everybody in the kingdom. And you're getting that storyline finally starting to pay off. So it's nice to see that. But we do have Daenerys, who is that other storyline, whose storyline is growing slowly. And at the very end of the episode, they finally decide to have her throw
That
her
was
in.
terrible. I mean, she needs 30 minutes.
At least.
Like, that was bullshit. That was literally like 3 minutes.
Have they ended every season with her? I'm trying to remember how season 2 ended.
The first season did.
Right,
I don't know
but
if
did
the second
season 2?
season did.
But I feel like there's always this sense of, her destiny sweeping in. It's just like gonna obliterate everybody
But she
else.
has 10 million men.
Yeah,
and
and
3 dragons.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like,
every
why can't
season,
she just
it's
take
like,
over the world and
just
be
go
done?
do it? Yeah.
Like, just do it already.
Yeah, they shouldn't be worried about the White Walkers at
Like,
all.
nobody
It's
will
all her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And that is the pan we get, the panoramic event. So many thousands upon thousands as the dragons fly everywhere.
And everybody's happy.
She's got the unsullied, like the baddest.
She needs to
Mhysa,
take over the
Mhysa,
world, and
Mhysa.
then it will just be her story.
Is that what
You
you're
know?
saying? Next
Yeah,
season,
just-
everyone gone.
just-
Doesn't matter.
You spend a season wiping everyone out, and then season. If she's naked, that's fine.
great. That's fine. Riding the
Why
dragon
not?
naked,
Right,
no
that's
problems.
fine.
Yeah.
And then the next season can be just her story.
Yeah.
You know, it's just her being cool to slaves.
You know what I was kind of noticing on a totally different note? I just kind of thought about this, that we see Jorah being the one who, again, is kind of talking to Daenerys, like, everything's great, he's the one introducing it, but what happened to Dario in this scene? Because Dario was making this big...
He's there.
But he
He's
didn't really
standing.
say anything. I was just like, Dario made that big movement last week, and all of a sudden, he's just in the background.
He's admiring her beauty.
Ah, good point.
That's all
Well,
it
he
is.
He's
didn't
just
have time
remembering
to
the
say
bathtub
anything.
scene.
It was like a 3-second scene.
I want everything!
Yeah.
He's probably just thinking about the bath moment, I guess.
He
The
was
bathtub scene.
The bathtub scene.
Exactly.
You know, Dany's kind of been doing things that were counterproductive. She was offered the ships and everything and to set sail and begin this conquest, and she decided to still liberate more slaves. And she's making calculated risks, but at the same time, it's slowing down her real agenda.
But then she is getting more supporters and more followers, and her army is just growing and growing, as we see at the end of the scene.
Massive.
And that's what we get from season 2. She's talking about, I need an army. How do I get an army? How do I get an army? And this has been the season of her growth of her army. Suddenly she has the Unsullied, she has dragons, she has all these slaves who seem like they would die for her as they're chanting out Mhysa, which means mother. And they then proceed to crowd surf her.
But it's also
Which is awesome.
It's also this weird way that the show and the books can sort of have their cake and eat it too. It's like, because really, when you're rooting for her, you're rooting for monarchy. You know, you're rooting for destiny, for
That's
one woman.
true.
So the fact that she's like freeing slaves is the only reason that she's an okay person. Otherwise, why would you be rooting for this woman to come kill all the Starks, come kill everybody? It's like, there's no other, I mean, and you know,
Because
you're,
she's
you're
hot.
criticizing Joffrey.
Point.
You criticize Joffrey for being this, like, you know, out of control king. Like, we're all against tyranny. But really, that's all she's just gonna be a queen. She's just gonna rule over a bunch of people, you know. But having her free the slaves is like a way to rationalize.
It's
the
also- it's
sense
all
of
about the
destiny.
music.
And by the
they
way, I
play.
still
Yeah.
she will be the queen and marry Grey Worm, and her and Grey Worm will
Grey
live
Worm.
together.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I mean, she has enough children, so she doesn't really need
That's
it to
true.
match, right?
That's-
It's
true.
like with Yara. They played this amazing epic music when Yara was going to go free Theon. So you're like, I root for Yara now.
Right.
And they play this epic music for Daenerys. And you're like, I'm rooting for Daenerys.
So true.
She has epic music.
George
That's what
R.
gets me.
Martin, he's so manipulative.
Yeah.
He is. Did anyone watch those reactions to the Red Wedding last week? By the
Yeah.
way,
So awesome on YouTube.
on
Yeah.
YouTube. Just,
Amazing.
I read the books and I was just watching Kristen all last week, like, wow, how's she gonna react?
Don't even want to know what I did. You're not
Sarah
gonna tell him?
screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just like, whoa. I don't know. You didn't have the best reaction. I'm sorry. I wanted more from you. You let me down, Kristen. Let me down.
It's never enough.
Apparently, I need to scar myself a little more.
I think that would help.
So
Let
with
me do it for you.
with whoa. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the season in full, because that kind of ended up the episode. What did you guys feel about season 3? Because for those of you who read, this is actually just half of the third book. And before they'd done, the first book was a full season, the second book was a second season, and now the third book they've split up into 2 seasons. And amazingly, I feel like it was actually paced still really well, even though it's just half of one book.
Yeah, no, I thought when I heard that it was going to be just half of one book, I was kind of disappointed because there are those slow episodes, but we always find out that we need them because they add weight to something that happens later. So I'm now okay the fact that at the speed we're going, because I do love all these characters, and some of them are still underdeveloped. So there's a lot that I look forward to learning about these characters, and we need that time in order to care about them.
I would agree. I don't think it's been drawn out really at all. Like, there are moments, obviously, because you need the character build-up. You need everything before it hits its climax. But I like it making it longer. It's like when you see a movie that's divided in two, normally I'm like, oh great, I have to wait another 8 months. But I want this show to last for like forever.
Yeah.
So if they make the next book like 3 seasons, I would probably still be fine.
I
Because
think
it gives
that's-
me something to do.
I
Yeah,
think they had to. I mean, the 4th book is the most boring book in the world, and it focuses on none of these characters. If I remember, the Cersei is the only one of these characters that's in the 4th book. So I feel like they're probably going to end up distributing the 3rd and 4th book into the next season.
Well, I think also the 4th and 5th book go hand in hand for those of you who read it. So at least they'll probably combine a lot of those storylines to at least kind of mesh it together. But I'm sure, I mean, they bled a little bit into the second half of the 3rd book here. So they always kind of do that and bleed into the later books.
You have to, though, when you're dealing, I think, with an ensemble story like this, and the only way to give, every actor and every character a chance to like actually gain any sort of like following and sympathy, you have to give them that much time.
And for those of you who thought there were too many characters to keep track of, guess what? Now there's less. Hey!
They're all dying.
We need them so we can kill them.
I have to say, too, I mean, just in terms of filmmaking, this season was incredible.
Yeah,
it was, to me, so much better than the second season. It felt more cinematic. It felt bigger. There was something smaller about the second season. I'm not quite sure what it was. If they changed locations or whatever, but the 3rd season really felt bigger, and I felt like all the actors upped their game. Like in the first couple seasons, it was hard to just tell like where everybody was going, and the kids, you were like, okay, you're kind of cute, whatever. But now it's like everybody is a solid actor, and I really believe their character. I believe in them, and the distinctions between them. I just think it's really come together.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the second season, this was something we talked about last year. We thought it was a little bit slower than the first season.
Yeah.
So it is nice. It feels like the 3rd season brought it back to this huge scale. And you really have to have those episode 9, like, oh my God moments, apparently, because season 1 had it with Ned.
Yep.
Now this season has it with the Red Wedding. And thank you, everyone, for still being here and watching the show, because a lot of people were like, I quit Game of Thrones. I quit it. I'm done with Game of Thrones forever.
But there went the rest of the show.
That shows you how great it is, though. Because on any other show on television, if you killed off the main characters, no one would watch. But Game of Thrones, people keep coming back. You kill off the lead, and everyone's still there waiting for the next person.
Well, when you were watching season 1, you thought Ned was going to pretty much be the lead character. And then when that happens, you're just like, whoa, no show's ever done this. What? So it's great they take those things. And that's what makes the show so interesting, is because they take these characters that you really grow to love, and they aren't afraid to have bad things happen to them.
to just take their job and their food off their table.
From the actor
They're not
perspective.
scared to do that. See you later.
You know what? They could have read the
Good luck.
books and known where their characters were going, though.
No, I feel like whenever there's a huge death like this, we grow to love these characters and root for them. And then when they do something like this to us, we take it personally, and that we've been offended, and we're just watching it. That's how you know you have such a great show on your hands.
Yeah, and George R.R. Martin actually said after he wrote the 3rd book, he received death threats from fans for the Red Wedding. He actually received death threats. And
That's
it's
not
just,
funny. Why am I laughing?
It's a little funny because people get so crazy into these things. And it's just like, you have to remember that it's a story. And we get so into these characters and involved with them, you really do feel personally hurt when someone that you care about like that.
These
and
are my
characters.
friends.
And now they're all dead. How do you feel? So what did you guys take to be some of the overarching themes of the 3rd season, other than we're going to kill all your friends?
Betrayal. I mean,
Yeah.
who didn't get betrayed? Robbed by his own bannermen. I mean, and people who were guiding him flipped on him. It's just like, you can't predict that. You have this code of honor in this world.
Yeah.
And you think that people are, abiding by it just like you are. But actually the ones who don't seem to be the ones at the top at the moment.
Well, I mean, the show surrounds like themes of like morality and spirituality, and there's like 800 layers and 800 connections. I literally think if I dissected the script, I could like match up people's lines. Like this person talked about a song, and this did. It's all about their crossovers and these people who are put in the same parallel positions but decide to make different decisions. Like Davos sending Gendry on its way, or like Shay refusing the diamonds where Jon Snow is like shot. Like all of those are the same decisions. It's about choosing love. It's about choosing your family. It's about choosing your side. And you get to see all these characters manipulate their situations. And it's a really deep show. Like these people have like real minds, and I love that.
At the same time, opposite of betrayal, you get like the Hound and that storyline where it's exactly the opposite. It's somebody they help each other in need. And today, when with Gedry in jail, or in the cell, like the same thing. So it's we find these people, two people that have been basically set out on their island to die, and come together and end up saving each other's lives.
Yeah. And I feel like we also get a lot of these themes of love going on that we've been talking about, where you have Sam and Gilly's relationship, you have with Robb Stark and his relationship, and with Talisa, and then
the Kingslayer, and there's love there.
Yeah,
and with
Jamie,
what's her name? With Jamie
love.
and
Cersei.
No,
And
with
Brienne,
with
Brienne.
Brienne. Yeah, you get a lot of moments
Absolutely.
there. And Jon Snow with the Grit, which I think was probably one of the most compelling relationships this season. We get a whole nother layer of Jon Snow and the conflicting ideas, as Kristen was talking about, how love can affect, like, what can love withstand, what can it not withstand, and
Can it even survive in this world?
right, can it
It
even
hasn't
survive in this
yet.
world? Because, I mean, we see some of the strongest relationships, which was maybe Ned and Catelyn always talks about how much she loves Ned, and I think that's a defining relationship that you hear about and talk about, and they were a set marriage. They were a set-up marriage in this world, and that was how they fell in love. And all these characters who are finding love outside of these set marriages, it seems to not really be working out for them. Which, I don't know, maybe that's
New
George.
theme,
Maybe that's
arranged
just
marriage.
what George thinks. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I also like this power struggle, though, that I feel like you're seeing. You get these arguments throughout all the seasons between Littlefinger and Varys, and I feel like that's just been growing this season, where you're kind of wondering what do they represent and who are they really? Because in the first season, they're just these curious characters where you're like, I don't really know where you're coming from or what your thoughts are, and we're slowly finding out a little bit more about each of them. And especially if Varys is being honest in this episode, you get a whole nother layer of his onion peeled back of who he is.
Yeah, we've got a lot of mysteries hanging in there, though. Like, when are we going to see Littlefinger again? Or when are we going to see the Sorcerer in the Box? I mean...
Oh yeah,
all
the
these,
Sorcerer in the Box.
We've got all these little things going on.
We also got revenge as a theme. Revenge.
Revenge is my
Varys.
favorite theme. I don't think I made that clear yet, but it's so great to see someone actually go and get what they feel like, they've been wronged, and then you get to see them on this journey of being like torn down to nothing, and then they can rise from that, and it's just like Gendry and Gatsby coming from humble beginnings and that climb. But these people have like real motivations that we are witnessing, and we're on their side rooting for them to get up and go kill.
Yeah.
At least I am.
Well,
So-
Kristen likes death, Gatsby, and revenge.
Yeah, we've learned a lot tonight. And
Scars.
scars. That's important. All right, so what are you guys looking forward to for season 4? What are you guys hoping to see?
Khaleesi.
What? Let's look
Riding
at some
a
of the people who
dragon.
haven't read the books. What do you guys want to see who haven't read the books?
I want to see Arya. Arya's my favorite. Somehow she needs to either gain a dragon or something, and then I'll be happy.
I want to see some of these like huge armies come together and fight it out. Like I'm
Yeah.
ready for them. I mean, they've been talking about it for 3 seasons. Like I want a showdown.
You want the full battle.
I
scene.
want the I want
You
the
don't
full
want,
battle.
Like, who's your best warrior? Who's your best
No,
warrior?
no, no, no.
One-on-one?
I want a full like like Mel Gibson
Yes.
speech, and then during Braveheart, and then go battle scene.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, they've managed to avoid that pretty much, haven't
Yeah, that's all they do is
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, because
Right.
even when Rob won all those battles, we
No,
never got to
you
see it.
Yeah,
And then
never saw
Tyrion
it.
got hit over the head and fell over in season 1 before his battle.
Right.
But season 2, we get to see the Battle of the
season two-
Blackwater.
yeah.
So you have
We
that.
saw-
That was their
yeah.
episode 9 big thing that happened last
But
season.
we need like a big battle
I
scene.
mean, maybe they're just trying to like hold up the anticipation for the White Walker
Okay.
battle.
Well, here's my
Possibly.
question. So, season 1, 2, and 3, we've had giant. Season 1 was Ned Stark died in episode 9. Season 2 is Battle of the Blackwater. This season was the Red Wedding. What do you guys think is going to happen in episode 9 of season 4? Because clearly, episode 9 is the episode.
I don't wanna think
Joffrey's
about that.
death.
That's
No,
what you
that'd be
think.
good news.
So you
It's
believe in the
supposed to be bad
leeches
news.
then?
The juju,
The
bad
juju.
juju, voodoo leeches.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, they won't kill Joffrey. They can't kill Joffrey.
Yeah.
He's too good.
Well, I cannot wait to see what
I want
happens.
it.
Bran can get into his head now.
That's true.
Where were you?
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I cannot wait to see what happens next season. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And we actually had Kyle Maddock in the audience who was here last week with us. We have Rob Gold, who's one of the fans. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And guys, everyone who came in, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, my name's Dave Klein. You can find me on Twitter at @TheDaveKlein or go to my website, gjk-online.com. And if you enjoy watching us at John Lovitz, we're at the John Lovitz Comedy Club at Universal City Walk. That's at John Lovitz Comedy. So check out Mad Men. They're going to be doing a giant show in a couple weeks as well. And would you guys like to go around?
Where can we find you? What's your Twitter?
At Ryder Strong, and I have my own podcast called Literary Disco. If anybody's into books
And disco.
Yeah.
Dancing while reading, right?
And I'm Sarah Stratton. Thank y'all for coming.
I'm Kristen Elizabeth Snyder, and you can follow me at Cinematic Escape, or you can check out my blog, just Google or Bing Cinematic Escape.
Eric Ladin, you can follow me on Twitter at Eric Ladin, or that's it.
Still in my style.
That's all
with
you
the
can
paint.
do. That's all you can do.
I don't know what this is, Eric. I don't know.
I
About
know.
This
And God, come on, man. I should have known better.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.